Muhammad married a young girl, a child, when she was 6 years old, and he consummated the marriage with her when she was 9 years old. Now, when we talk about this, many Muslims in response to that mention that his first wife was 40 years old when Muhammad married her, and he was only 25, so he married a much older woman. Very often, this is brought up by people who don't even fully trust the Islamically authentic reports that Muhammad did marry Aisha when she was 6 and consummated the marriage when she was 9. Instead, they say his first wife was 40 years old when he married her. And many of us take this information that he married an older woman for a fact. The problem is that there is actually no authentic report by Islamic standards which says that Muhammad's first wife, Khadijah, was 40 years old when he married her. There is no single report within the authentic Islamic hadiths which talks about her age and which confirms that she was 40 years old. Accounts about her age, saying that she was 40 years old, only come from secondary reports such as writings about Muhammad's life, writings that did not make it into the authentic hadith collections. If we want to compare this knowledge about Khadijah's age to the knowledge we possess about Aisha's age, then we can say that it is extremely likely that Muhammad did indeed marry Aisha when she was 6 years old and consummated the marriage when she was 9, because there are multiple records agreed upon and verified by Islamic scholars. It is only a tradition that Khadijah was 40 years old when Muhammad married her. There is no way to verify this information. For the average person today, there is no reason to take this knowledge as a fact. According to those traditions, he was a merchant and she was his employer. She was wealthy, he had nothing. They got married, he became wealthy, and then he became a prophet. That certainly doesn't mean that he's a virtuous guy. And it also doesn't absolve him of having a dozen marriages after her and marrying a little child.
One of the most enduring criticisms against Islam revolves around the marriages of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Detractors often point to his marriage with Aisha or question Khadijah's age at marriage, using these as grounds for unfounded attacks on his character. Let's dismantle these claims step by step, using historical evidence, logic, and a contextual understanding of the era. Critics claim there are no authentic reports confirming that Khadijah was 40 when she married the Prophet, peace be upon him. They argue this tradition is based on secondary sources, not hadiths. Is this argument valid, or is it a selective attack on Islamic historiography? Evidence 1. Historical sources. Khadijah's age is recorded in multiple early Islamic biographies, such as Ibn Ishaq's Sirah and expanded by Ibn Hisham. These works are foundational in understanding the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him. While not included in hadith compilations like Bukhari or Muslim, these accounts have been relied upon by Islamic scholars for centuries. Evidence 2. Contextual analysis. Even if Khadijah's exact age is debated, what remains undisputed is her status and significance. 1. She was a highly respected businesswoman in a patriarchal society. 2. She was known for her wisdom, integrity, and leadership. Whether she was 40 or younger, her qualities transcend numerical debates. The Prophet's, peace be upon him, decision to marry her highlights his deep respect for character and intellect. Interestingly, critics dismiss Khadijah's age as unverified, but rely on similar sources to attack the Prophet's other marriages. This selective skepticism reveals their bias rather than a pursuit of truth. The Prophet's marriage to Aisha at a young age is often weaponized by critics. But to understand this, we must look at 1. The societal norms of 7th century Arabia. 2. The historical context of marriage across cultures. 3. The extraordinary role Aisha played in Islamic history. Evidence 1. Societal norms of the time. In 7th century Arabia, marriage at a young age was common and socially acceptable. It was not unique to the Prophet, peace be upon him. Marriage was often seen as a means of alliance building. Puberty marked the transition to adulthood, not modern age standards. For example, in Europe, Richard II married Isabella of France when she was only 6 years old. This was centuries later, yet such practices remained widespread. Evidence 2. Aisha's role in Islam. Critics reduce Aisha to her age at marriage, ignoring her monumental contributions to Islam. She became one of the greatest scholars in Islamic history, narrating over 2,000 hadiths. Her intellect and wisdom shaped Islamic jurisprudence, theology, and ethics. She was a leader in the Muslim community, even taking part in pivotal events like the Battle of the Camel. The Prophet's peace be upon him, marriages were not driven by personal desires, but by divine wisdom and social reform, uniting warring tribes and creating harmony among communities, supporting widows and protecting the vulnerable in society, setting examples for Muslims on how to treat wives with respect, kindness, and justice. Examples of selflessness. Consider this. The Prophet, peace be upon him, remained in a monogamous marriage with Khadijah for 25 years, despite polygamy being common. After her passing, his marriages served communal and strategic purposes, often involving widows or women in need of protection. Critics outrage over the Prophet's marriages while ignoring similar practices in other cultures and religions. Why this double standard? Historical records show that young marriages were common in Jewish, Christian, and even secular societies. By today's standards, such practices may seem unusual, but they were the norm for centuries. Misrepresentation of Islam. The attack on the Prophet's, peace be upon him, character reveals a deeper agenda: to misrepresent Islam by taking historical practices out of context, to ignore the transformative impact of the Prophet's teachings on women's rights, family values, and community cohesion. Aisha became a beacon of knowledge and leadership, teaching generations of Muslims. Her contributions to hadith, fiqh, and Islamic ethics remain unparalleled. While Khadijah, the first Muslim, sacrificed her wealth and status for the message of Islam, she remains a role model for resilience, loyalty, and faith. When critics attack the marriages of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they expose their ignorance of history and bias against Islam. The legacies of Aisha and Khadijah are not defined by their age, but by their remarkable contributions to humanity. Share this video to spread the truth. Subscribe to our channel for more fact-based insights into Islamic history. Let's challenge misinformation together. Assalamu alaikum.